Well, we're live.
Hey, welcome to That Chronicles, where we're all sitting here. We're veterans, and we want to welcome you. Thank you for being here, where veterans get a chance to talk about issues that are common to us. So my name is Rick Prescott.
I'm Mike Ruffner.
I'm Jason Hertha.
I'm Joe McLaughlin.
I am Tim Stewart, Coach Papa.
Awesome.
And be sure to view our previous podcasts, and you can also catch us on YouTube, Spotify, Twitch, Apple, and we want to thank our producers for where we are broadcasting from, 216 The Net. And please hit the like, share, subscribe button on YouTube to get further notifications for future podcasts.
Yes.
We are pleased to introduce you all that we're going to talk about the significance of Flag Day. And we got Coach Papa, Tim Stewart, and we pulled out of Richmond Burton High School, Joe McLaughlin. They're both military vets. Tim was in the Army, and Joe was a Marine. So, welcome aboard, guys.
Who, us?
What?
Where? I got to take what hill? You take the damn hill.
So, Joe, you just got out of school.
Turned in the keys this afternoon about 28 minutes ago.
Last day of school for the students, and Joe being a teacher, you packed it in for the summer.
Yeah, I was ready an hour and ahead of time too, so I was ready to get out of there.
I'm sure the kids were too.
Oh, they bolted. They did not stick around. But
Little
I
puff
want-
of dust.
can we have some background music? Can you hear that? Alice Cooper. School is out for summer right now.
I was up at Wilmot High School this morning. My grandson and another kid qualified for the Wisconsin State track meet. So they had a little parade for them up there. So the teachers, the kids, everybody's ready to hit the road running.
I am not ready. The grandkids get out on Monday. It's like, you're going to take say, I'm bored. What's to eat? It was like, I got a regular job.
Gotta love our school system. Let's make them sit for a weekend and have them come back for one more day before. So that Monday is going to be just.
It's a zoo day.
It certainly is.
Well, Jason, you just got out of school, didn't you?
Yeah. Last week.
He might get his high school diploma soon.
Yeah, right? I might go to college or join the Marine Corps or something.
There you go.
I got my
Maybe the Marine
GED.
Corps.
Your GED. Yeah, I got my GED. Your GED. Yeah, my GED. I got my GED.
My God.
It's funny, the grandkids, there's a school bus coming around for special ed, and they go, there goes the sped buck.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, we have a very interesting topic today. And Tim is going to share with us some issues regarding Flag Day, the significance of Flag Day.
What most people don't realize is there is a day that we just celebrate the flag, right? There's a lot of days the flag means something. We just got done with Memorial Day,
Right.
And the flag goes to half mast until noon, and then it goes up. So something happens with the flag. July 4th comes along, and everybody's marching and waving their flags. You come to the end of the summer, you've got 9/11 now, which, we need to pay close attention to. I guess I should have added D-Day in there on June 6th. There's several days where the flag means a lot, but Flag Day is the only day set aside just to recognize the flag for the United States of America. And what a civilian doesn't really get, now we've all been in the military, and what happens if the flag goes down? What do you do?
Get it off the ground.
You get it off the ground, right? Or if you're in battle and it goes down and the flag bearer gets shot or goes down, somebody else picks up the flag and runs with it. The flag is what represents everything that we have in this country. And we miss that. Flag Day goes unknown half the time. Matter of fact, we're sitting here today because of Flag Day. In 2016, coming up to Flag Day about 2 weeks ahead of time, this fellow named Frank Hostica was trying to bring Kent Jones, Deke, one of the owners of 216, and myself together. And he had set a couple of appointments, and for whatever reason, Kent wasn't able to make one. I wasn't able to make one. And then there was a mixer coming up at Black Diamond Plumbing for the Chamber of Commerce on June 14th. And I called the chamber and I said, you're having a mixer on Flag Day. do the people holding the mixer know that? And she goes, well, I don't know. I didn't know it was Flag Day. And I'm okay. Call over to Black Diamond. Really cool people over there. Black Diamond, their ownership, their leadership was really fantastic. And Rick, the founder, got a hold of him, and I said, are you doing something for Flag Day? Oh, didn't even realize it was Flag Day. I said, most of us don't, but I think I can help you out there. And he said, okay. So, I'm an inspirational speaker. I MC a lot of events, but I also do a fairly good representation of the flag based off Johnny Cash's Ragged Old Flag from late 80s, I think, or late 70s, 1979, I think he might have written that. And he said, well, sure, come on down. Well, Kent happened to be at that mixer. And once he heard me say the Ragged Old Flag, we got together and we started talking. Kent was looking to relaunch a radio show at the FM station over at Harvard, Illinois. And we met for coffee, and we're like, all right, we're going to do this. And we're both coaches. So what do we name the show? Coffee with Coaches. Nah, that's boring. And a couple other, and he happened to look in the plate glass mirror, was sitting there, and I was completely shaved at that time. And he said, how about two bald guys and a microphone? And that became the foundation. Once we were on air at Harvard for 3 years in 2018, March of 2018, we launched 216 The Net. The former version of it, it's a little bit different today than it was back then. And we kept our radio show going, but we've had up to as many as 25 radio shows on. I think we're at 23 right now. But it's given us an opportunity to have a reach into the public, a positive spin on the world. We don't do any weather and we don't do any politics, so we have no bad news comes out of this station. Everything we do is positive. It brings help. It brings service, just like you guys. When he told me about your show 11 weeks ago, for those of you who aren't aware, I had a quadruple bypass. So I've been recovering. And
Everything good?
Everything's good now and working my way back. But he said, hey, we got a new veteran show. When you get back, you got to get involved in it. And he just told me about it. He said, it's Marines running it. And I said, oh, my Lord. What am I going to do with that? Well, the good news is
you were an engineer in the Army.
I was a military policeman in the Army.
I thought you were an engineer.
I was a military policeman. Then I was an engineer.
Okay.
Then I was a combat medic, and then I went and became an infantry officer.
Oh, you a little bit of everything.
I had a.
See, but as an engineer, you blew up things.
We did.
Well, that's just like us.
Amen.
So,
but they did just pass a law that can no longer call Marines jarheads. They found out jars contain things, and there's just no. Boom. But anyway, back to Flag Day. So when I first heard the Ragged Old Flag by Johnny Cash, I had the album. Now an album is this piece of vinyl with some grooves in it that you would put a needle on, and it would make sound. I don't know if
born and raised with him.
Right.
I don't know about Jason though.
But
What's that?
He wants to know if you know.
You ever
about
seen the vinyl albums?
records.
Yeah,
Oh, you have. Okay,
I'm a little well versed.
I stand corrected. He's
so
well versed.
I learned that, and today I use that as my opening. I figure if I've got a patriotic heartbeat in the audience, and I can get them going with the Ragged Old Flag, then whatever else I say throughout the course of my presentation will go well. Well,
if I may, before you begin this, because
Yes.
I want to hear this, because that's one of my favorites.
Okay.
Of Johnny Cash's productions. And way back when, I lived in Canada. And I lived in Canada for like 23 years. Well, being away from your country, and I was already outside of my
Was that
country for
before or
3
after
years.
the draft?
Tim, he did it backwards. He went there after his service. He ran to Canada.
Gotcha.
I know. I learned my lesson. I learned my lesson the first time. But once you're there for a long time, you don't see the American flag unless you drive by a hotel or something. But here I was, the Canadian flag flying everywhere and so on. I never saw and so you miss it over a period of time. You become climatized to this new reality, but in the same token, you have this longing to see that Yankee flag furl.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Toronto to visit my father-in-law. He's long gone now, but he was a military guy, served in the Canadian Armed Forces for 25 years, and he was on their aircraft carriers, the only aircraft carriers that Canada had during the time, and he got up right after World War. Anyway, at his house, he surprised me. I went around the backyard and a cup of coffee in my hand. He goes, sit down. And he had put up a flagpole back there.
Oh, wow.
And he ran the American flag up that
nice.
flagpole.
Nice.
And he had the Johnny Cash thing going on a boom box so that I can hear the ragged old flag.
Oh, boy.
And on top of that, the backyard was filled with a bunch of neighbors. He had a whole bunch of folks in the neighborhood, and they said, hey, we just want you to feel at home. I tell you, it was just awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
And then hey, they turned around and said, now we'll pack your bag, send you back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here's the rest of the surprise: a one-way ticket to Chicago.
Yeah, when you leave it.
Your visa's expired.
But yeah, I grew up with this song throughout my past, and this is a phenomenal thing that, and you know this, you know this by heart.
Yeah. If you get me going, I can go for about 8 hours on the things that I have memorized, but we don't want to get started. Take a couple beers to turn on most of them, but
It could be bad if we don't let Joe talk.
oh, he's gonna have plenty of time.
Just sitting there, just sitting.
Just waiting my turn. But I added a couple of different things to the presentation. Were you at Johnsburg Memorial Day last year?
I went the year before last.
Okay, so last year was the first time I did it in this way, but I think you'll appreciate everything I do with it. So
Let's hear this.
Johnny Cash, a little bit of the Pledge, and a little bit of Lee Greenwood. So
Fabulous.
I walked through a county courthouse square. On a park bench, an old man was sitting there. I said, your old courthouse is kind of run down. He said, nah, it'll do for our little town. I said, your flagpole's leaned a little bit, and that's a ragged old flag you have hanging on it. He said, have a seat. So I sat down. Is this the first time you've been to our little town? I said, I think it is. He said, I don't like to brag, but we're kind of proud of that ragged old flag. You see, it got a little hole in that flag there when Washington took it across the Delaware, and it got powder burned the night Francis Scott Key sat watching it writing, oh, say, can you see? Got a bad rip down in New Orleans with Packingham and Jackson tugging at the seams, and she almost fell at the Alamo beside the Texas flag, but she waved on through. She got cut by a sword at Chancellorsville. She got cut again at Shiloh Hill. There was Robert E. Lee, Beauregard, and Bragg, and the south wind blew hard on that ragged old flag. Flanders Field in World War I, she got a big hole from a Bertha gun. She turned blood red in World War II. She hung limp and low before that was through. She was in Korea, in Vietnam. She went where she was sent by her Uncle Sam. She waved over our ships upon the briny foam, and now they've about quit waving her back here at home. In her own good land, she's been abused, she's been burned, dishonored, denied, and refused, and the government for which she stands is scandalized throughout the land. She's getting threadbare and wearing thin, but she's in good shape for the shape she's in, because she's been through the fire before, and I believe she can take a whole lot more. So we raise her up every morning, take her down every night. We don't let her touch the ground, and we fold her up right. And second thought, I do like to brag, because I'm mighty proud of that ragged old flag. And that's why I choose to pledge my allegiance to that flag of these United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, for every human being who has ever set foot on the soil of the United States of America. That flag represents liberty and justice for all. But more than that, it represents the hundreds of thousands, even millions of people who gave their life, their limb, their liberty, their sanity to make this and keep this the greatest nation on the face of the earth. Now, I am proud to have been born in the great state of Nebraska. I'm proud to have lived in Georgia, Colorado, Nebraska, Texas, and over half my life right here in the land of Lincoln. But beyond all of that, so far beyond all of that, if all the things were gone that I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, well, I'd thank my lucky stars to be living here today, because that flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I am proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men and women who died to give that right to me, and I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Nebraska, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, from New York to LA, there is pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I am proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men and women who died to give that right to me, and I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, because ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. So God bless each and every one of us sitting here today.
Hoorah.
Hoorah. That's beautiful, bud.
Thanks, man.
That's beautiful.
And then on the first anniversary of 9/11, I was with Edward Jones at that time, and one of my clients got a hold of me and said, would you read a poem tomorrow on the first anniversary of 9/11? I said, can you get me a copy of it so I can practice it? She said, well, I haven't found it yet. I said, well, can I help you find something? She said, please, So I started looking, then I got this feeling. I started writing. I called her in about a half hour. I said, and I read this to her. She said, where'd you find that? I said, I just wrote it. So this is what I wrote right before 9/11. And it says, the king was overtaxing his subjects far away. Things were really getting ugly until that fateful day when the colonists dressed as Indians descended upon the ships and tossed the tea into the sea as a cry rose from their lips. You can no longer overtax us. We have no more to give. So take your laws and leave our land. We choose to govern where we live. Things had gotten bad before, but this time was a first that saw America at its best when things were at their worst. And it started a tradition, a way of life, so to say, that has affected all Americans from then until today. Every time we get complacent and start bickering among ourselves, someone comes and tries to break us to cast our paradise into hell. But every time they do it, they find out like the rest, it's when things are at their worst that America is at its best. Now, this latest interruption that is known as 9/11, as they toppled the Twin Towers and sent thousands into heaven, is just one more reminder to those beyond our shore that we can be your greatest friend, or you can be no more. So take this as a warning. Those who would put us to the test, if you want to try to break us, you will find America and Americans at their best. There's one line in there I'd like to go back to. Every time we get complacent and start bickering amongst ourselves, someone comes and tries to break us and cast our paradise into hell. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now we are more vulnerable in this country than we've been in a very long time.
Amen.
And it's our veterans, and it's the people who have served this country who have brought us here, and it's the current military who's going to bring us back. But we've got to support them, and we've got to get out there. And most of all, we got to stop bickering among ourselves, and we got to stop shooting up our schools and our malls and our grocery stores, and we got to pull back together. We got to stop all this bickering somehow. And putting a show like Roger That together, I think it's a step in the right direction. So thank you guys for doing what you do.
That's what it's all about.
Amen.
Absolutely. This is what
Amen.
this is why we do
Hallelujah.
this.
So,
A little bit of patriotism.
Well,
And I've heard it actually said by Canadians that when I live there, that nationalism and or patriotism is a bad thing. And this was said back in the 80s. And I went, how so? And they were comparing it to World War II Germany as the launching pad for Hitler to be able to become a dictator. And I simply told him, you're misunderstanding the context. That how do you criticize something that's really good, that brings people together, that unites this melting pot that we have here with all the diversity that we have between religious groups, religious diversity, ethnic diversity, and so on, with all of those tensions that are there, even built within the context of the design of our government. Conflict is a good thing, but in the same token, if there's an underlying thing, and that being that we're all Americans, that provides that peaceful element that brings us all together. So there's nothing wrong with nationalism, and there's nothing wrong with patriotism, as long as it's within the right context and guided by the right ideologies.
Rick, there's a different term I like to use that it doesn't have the ring of nationalism or even patriotism, because those can be confused. But the term in the mission of the American Legion is to promote Americanism. That's their mission statement, to promote Americanism and to engage the youth and the proper upbringing of those boys and girls in our town. We're supposed to do that. That's the mission of the American Legion. And I
Right.
like it starts. The mission is to promote Americanism, and everything after that, it's talking about engaging the youth and helping to educate them
So this might
about
be,
Flag Day. Let's talk
all
about what
these
Flag
points
Day
right
does.
now. This is probably the time to turn around and talk about. In 2 years will be the Armed Forces, well, Army, Navy, and Marine Corps 250th anniversary.
Mhm.
And Navy and Marine Corps, I already know, is already putting things in wheels. But when we talk about American Legion or AMVETS, PLAV, Marine Corps League, or all the other veterans groups, this is a time everyone should get into the schools. Not just Veterans Day, but you got Armed Forces Day. Just before Memorial Day, I know that Joe's school, they put on a big shindig for Veterans Day, is to go out there and kind of remind everybody about rallying around the flag, and maybe we'll get rid of some of this dissension that we got within the United States. Because everyone turn around, remember the flag means we're supposed to be united. We're not supposed to be divisive.
I misspoke. The other part of the mission of the Legion is to engage not just youth, but the scouts.
Amen.
The scouts. And that's what we're doing in Harvard. We got Flag Day this coming up next month. We do it at our regular June meeting. And I invite the scouts. There's 3 troops actually in Harvard now. They come over. We've had probably 20 years now. This is probably our 20-year anniversary of doing it. Having kids come over with their scout leaders to wherever we have it. Now it's at my yard. I do it in my backyard. It's one of the greatest things. These folks just come and descend upon my yard, park in the big yard in the front, come in the back, and I got my burn barrel there, and we do it right there.
Wow.
Bundles and bags and boxes of flags every year.
And to start them off
To
young,
retire flags respectfully. Let's be clear about that.
to start them off young like that, and that's where we don't have enough of it, as far as I'm concerned. They should do this in the schools, but they don't have. Like I'm looking at like what just happened recently with the young Marines out of Elgin area, of the Fox Valley Young Marines. They just won the Kiki Camarino Award. Did you see that?
Oh, I missed it.
I just got an email from Courtney down there, and it's a national award put out by the DEA in recognition of Kiki Camarino. He was killed in the early 80s, I believe it was, in Mexico. He was actually taken a hostage, and after 3 weeks of torture, they murdered him.
Marine that ended
And
up murdered.
he was a Marine as
Marine.
well, about 37 years old or so. But anyway, they honor these youth groups. But here's another one, a youth group. So we have the Brownies, the Girl Scouts, we got the Boy Scouts, the Cub Scouts, and the Young Marines. And there's several others out there that we don't even know about. But they're the ones that are really capturing the patriotism side of it.
ROTC too.
Oh yeah, that's true
ROTC
too.
is doing a great job.
Right. Fantastic.
We just had on the Sunday before Memorial Day, the McHenry Legion had the 22-mile march for the 22 veterans who commit suicide.
Oh wow.
I just had the quadruple bypass, so I wasn't able to march in it, but I was the recovery vehicle for anybody who got
Nice.
the blisters or thing. And then the last stop was at half times in Johnsburg, and the final leg was to Veterans Memorial Park in McHenry. And I live in Johnsburg, so I parked my car at home and walked the final 4 miles with them. But there was 35 people who walked 22 miles for the recognition of the soldiers.
Chicago puts on a huge one. They had it on the 19th of May, and they have a large turnout. That was on the radio, the whole 9 yards. Chicago Police Marines spearhead it now.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
Oh, that's dead air right there, Phil.
Well, that's a little bit dead air.
Well, back to Flag Day. Yep.
Back to the flag.
Back to Flag Day. Let's talk about Flag Day.
One of the things that I brought up to Post 491 here in McHenry is I'd like to order a bunch of flags, 100, 150 flags, whatever. And on Flag Day, I'd like to get a bunch of Legionnaires to head out into the neighborhoods and find somebody who's displaying the flag, but their flag is ripped. And it's still flying all ripped up, and just present them with a new flag at no cost, just to make sure that we clean up the flags in our neighborhoods and our local communities. It's great that you're flying it, but you've got to respect it at the same time. It's not just the fact that there's red, white, and blue on the top of the pole.
Right.
It is, have you followed the protocol of the flags? For a couple of years, I got a flagpole out in front of my house, and I was every day, I'd go out and take it up and take it out. And finally, I just got tired of doing that. I just left it up. And somebody went by and put the flag protocol in my door and says, "You don't have a light on it, then all right." So I went and got one of those solar powered lights that goes on top of the flagpole, and it lights up automatically at night and sheds light on the flag. But it is, it's the symbol of our country, and we miss that message. We're not getting that message across to our kids. If you've got any scouting group or anything that you want me to come and do this presentation, or version of what I just did, I just set up with the local assisted living. It's called Randall Residence right now, but today they officially became Encore Courtyard East Campus.
Oh, right. That's one of the ones we visited during Veterans Day last year.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, the other thing is, with let me get this a little closer here. The schools, getting rid of the Pledge of Allegiance. I remember when I was in grade school and all that, every morning doing the Pledge of Allegiance, and I definitely think we need to bring that back without a doubt.
Is that true though? Did the schools actually drop the Pledge of Allegiance out of school?
Why don't you ask the teacher?
Yeah, ask him.
Is that true, Joe? Is that your experience?
I've been a teacher for 24 years, and we've said the Pledge of Allegiance every morning I've ever stood in the classroom.
Really? So it must have been just
some teachers
a school
choose.
thing.
It's a teachers. Some don't even want to be bothered with the news announcements the kids make or whatever. Some people don't want to be bothered with the pledge. I do it. It's my job,
Oh, so you personally do it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, good for you.
With the kids in my room every day for 25 years.
See, what I'm worried about is how much misinformation is out there pertaining to the Pledge of Allegiance not being played in school. How much of that is misinformation?
Well, they probably do that stuff on purpose too, because I remember, at least when I was in elementary school, they would have that over the speaker,
right,
every morning. And then I think in like high school, I didn't hear that anymore, but I could be mistaken. So, but again, 9/11 was one of the key moments of why I signed up to go into the military and do infantry and all that crazy stuff or whatever. So there was more people that
all that crazy stuff.
Yeah, when 9/11 happened, people were a lot more patriotic at that time frame. So
how funny 20 years later is.
Well, you got kids in your school that graduating weren't even alive when it happened.
I know it.
9/11 2 years ago, I was the head soccer coach for both men's and women's program at Wilmot High School. And all right, let's have a moment of silence for 9/11. The kids looked at me like, Don, I mean, some of these kids weren't even born on 9/11.
They weren't even a twinkle.
Right. Yeah. So they got the story, and that was the first half of practice. Let's figure out what we're all about in this country. What makes this country great? Because right now it's not cell phones.
No.
Right.
My grandson gets in the car and he goes right onto his Snapchat. And I'm like, James, he's like, well, I got to get my whatever it's streaks. I got to keep my streaks going. Like, really?
All right.
Tell me any name on there that you're sending these streaks to that you have to get going. He goes, John. I go, what's John's favorite color? I go, what do you mean? What does John like to do when he's not in school? Why are you so worried about these people you don't even know? When I'm in this car with you for 15 minutes and that's all we get every day, and you're spending all this time with people you don't even know.
Got to make the connection to him, buddy.
And he's the one who's going to the state track meet now. You carry that phone around the track with you?
They do. They can run with them.
Got to see how fast he's running.
They can run with them.
Earbuds.
Yeah.
You can run with them, man.
Oh man.
Apparently, you can take Spanish class with earbuds too.
Oh really?
And you have Google Translator going.
You should release like a bunch of cassette tapes. Oh, that's real old school. But release a program so then people can hear your voice as you teach Spanish.
You're right.
That'd be hilarious.
I need to teach from this location. Is fabulous.
I learned a lot in Spanish class. Donde está baño?
Okay, bathroom.
Where's the bathroom?
Yep.
And dos cerveza, por favor.
2 beers, yes.
2 beers.
That's the only two
One
phrases I needed when I was down
one
South
for me
America.
and one for my friend.
Bingo.
Well, my friend didn't drink, so I got 2.
I gave up on trying to learn other languages. I was in Brussels, Belgium with my family, my brother-in-law, my brother and his wife, and my ex and so forth. We're up there partying, and I walk over. In Belgium, what's very famous is they have a newspaper type of paper in a cone form, and they load it with French fries, and then they put in a mayonnaise, a spicy type of mayonnaise in it, and they call
And
it palm
aioli?
frites.
Yeah,
Palm frites
frites, yes.
is a fruit of the palm sort of thing.
Yeah.
And with
Which
with,
means
with
apple.
and so what I asked this gentleman, I said, you know, I was going to show off to my brother-in-law. I said, hey man, how do you say you know, palm frites avec mayonnaise in French? And he goes, you know, he goes, forget it, man. I said, no, I don't I just want to impress my brother, you know. He goes, no. He goes, just say palm frites. Forget the mayo. Get the meat. My brother walks up on me. He goes, are you trying to learn French? I look like a real idiot.
Yep.
Trying to impress. You know?
That was one of the terms when I was in culinary school. They're like pomme frite, pont neuf, you know, with the potato and all that stuff. And there's like a what is it? Pomme frite is like a 1/4 inch all the way around, 2 inches long or whatever. So you go through the diameters. But yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. So, yeah, that's a legitimate term.
You know, though, being overseas and being an American overseas, there were a lot of wonderful experiences that I had, like on embassy duty, for example. In some cases, like when I was in Athens, Greece, that year was the year that the American embassy was attacked and overrun in Tehran, in 79. So, and I remember earlier in the year walking down the street, a Greek fellow looked at me and he cursed at me because I was an American. And I was, you know, livid. I was livid at this.
Been
And
there,
one
done that.
of my buddies pulled me back and he goes, I just remember where you work. I represent this. Yes, you're right. So I calmed down. Yes, sir. You know, have a nice day. Walked off. But after the American embassy was taken over, I could not believe walking the streets. They know you're a Yank and they run over and they were saying, we're really sorry about what happened to your country. We're really sorry. What are you guys going to do? And they were rallying around us.
Wow.
So I realized there was this funny thing about foreigners, if you want to call them that, people of other nations. There is this love-hate type of relationship. And I think the love part of it is what we represent. That is that freedom element, that flag being shown, etc., and what we represent in terms of our power and what we're trying to accomplish overseas. But on the same token, we can be somewhat intrusive. But I think that's where the intrusion part of it comes from the from the, you know, the downside side sort of it, the impact of it. But it was an interesting experience to have that.
You know, and if you look nowadays, it's that people outside the country are more patriotic than people within the country. You got all this stuff all over, and you know, how do we as veterans turn it around?
Well, that's a great call. When you got a bunch of veterans working together on a project, incredible things happen. You know, I've done a lot of volunteer projects, and I always look for the veterans in the group if we want to get things done. And not necessarily military veterans, firefighters, police, people who have gone through some form of a disciplinary regiment to understand the power of working together and the power of a team. So many of these younger people, they're just like, yeah, I'll do that, and they never do it. Right. And you're like, well, did you have any success? Oh, I didn't get to it. And it's like, you want something to get done, get a veteran.
Wow. Yeah, that's
Agreed.
very true. Makes a lot of sense.
And if you're out there hiring, look for a veteran.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why it's very important for veterans to become part of a veterans organization. Because one, we think the same. We have certain elements.
I don't think like you, Rick.
Well, we're completely different people. I mean, if you take a look at our organization, what do we have, 140 or so, completely different personalities, but there are commonalities that bring us all together. And that sense of pride about being a veteran, being from the branch that we came from, all of those things that make us proud Americans. And what do? You know, we do have an impact on our community, and it's a positive impact. When we're marching in those parades, how many people scream out at us as we're, hey, thank you for your service and so on. It brings, just by our presence, it brings home that little shot in the arm of patriotism that people need from time to time. And I think you had mentioned that before. You and I had a lot of discussions over this, Mike, about the importance of being a member of a veterans group and the impact that has on our country.
Well, and that's a big thing, is that years ago we had a little friction with another veterans organization. They wanted us to join in with them and march down the street and stuff. And we did that one year. And when we got done, we said, never again.
Never.
Because
Sorry.
as a Marine, you're right.
remember
'Cause
You were there?
We did it twice in the same town. But anyway, when Marines march, we have a certain way to march, and we're going to look good because, one, it's our pride. The second is the people that came out to that parade deserve the best performance on our part for presenting the red, white, and blue. The other veterans groups, we can't control what they do. And if, I saw a guy carrying an American flag, and he turns around and somebody yells his name. He broke ranks. He went all the way to the curb to shake his hand. He's supposed to be in a
And he's got the flag in his hand.
He's got the flag.
Oh,
he's
geez.
he's the bearer for that organization. It's like, no, we get invited to do the lead in most of the parades in our county because we're consistent on how we perform. But the other part of it is, and Tim, because you guys are in the school, how many kids gravitate to us? Because I see that with my grandkids at the school they go to, is that some of their family, the kids that they hang around with, they may have dysfunctional stuff like my grandkids got. They can't pick their parents, but they seem to gravitate because we have that aura about us with our military background that the kids kind of respect that, and they're asking us certain questions.
Mm.
They may mouth off to some other adult, but they don't do it to you because you'll knock them out, or they think you'll do it.
Well, my kids, right from the time they were very young, never scolded, never raised my voice, but they did push-ups. And the push-ups were always commensurate with the crime. And at one point, my son did 750 push-ups. I won't go into what he did, but he was, and today,
all in one shot or in breaks?
all in one shot.
Nice.
We were up at Country Thunder when he was 11, and the Marine Corps was up there with their pull-up bar. And it was do 5 pull-ups and get a hat, do 10 pull-ups, get a hat and a t-shirt, do 15 pull-ups, get a hat, a t-shirt, and a water bottle. He looks at him and he goes, what if I do 25 push-ups? He says, kid, you do 25, I'll give you the shirt off my back. He jumped up, and at 25, he said, or about 20, he said, he's going to do it, isn't he? I said, yeah, you should have went for 50. This boy. But we were a disciplined family, but we had fun. When he was getting ready to get married, he came to me one day and he asked me to be his best man. And so I was my son's best man at his wedding.
Fantastic.
And that was that bond that we had, but it was because of the discipline that we had in our house. And it was never, I learned from Drill Sergeant Fuentes, you never have to raise your voice if you're saying the right things. And I can't quite go into what he said, but he basically said, you can dent my pickup, you can blank my wife, you can shoot my dog, but don't ever mess with my flag again or I will kill you. And it was right about in that, about 1.5 decibels. And but he looked me in the eyes as he said it, and I never messed with his flag again.
It's funny when my kids were little, Emily was like about 2.5, 3 years old, just learning how to talk. And at that time, I remember she was listening to a Mike Schneider song that I used to play, and it was entitled "If Your Nose Is Running Money." If my nose was running money, I'd blow it all on you. It was hilarious song. You got to look it up. But anyway, and she was singing with this. So I said, if she can remember that, I'm going to have her remember a bunch of really cool things. So before you know it, she was barking off when people came into the house. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. and I'm serious. Little 2.5-year-old kid was barking this out. Along with, she could tell you who the president was, the vice president, the secretary of state, the secretary of defense, Ronald Rumsfeld.
Wow.
Yeah, it was hilarious. It was beautiful.
They weren't blowing green stuff all over the place either, were they?
Thank you.
A little positive nature there.
Sure.
It's just to keep them patriotic, get them young.
Say, I want to make a relative comment to what everybody said something so far. Each one of you has talked about something important. I told my kids in my classroom about this because it was just about 2 weeks ago. There's a 2-car collision right in front of the home for veterans in Hebron on Route 47 going north. There's a crash. 5 of the residents ran out, took control of the situation, blocked traffic.
Wow.
And when the one car that caused the accident took off, they got the license plate They administered first aid to the person who was left victim in the hit and run.
Wow.
And when the police showed up, they went back inside. We run to danger. Veterans run to danger. We run to help people. Those are the homeless veterans that live in Hebron, Illinois. If you don't know about it, it's called Veterans Path to Hope. And
It's amazing.
I just happened to be taking a donation from my school over there. We did an end of school year donation, bring it to my classroom, toilet paper, trash bags, canned goods, anything that you want to donate, paper towels, all that stuff. And cleaning solution stuff. And I'd go over there to donate it. But man, those people are amazing. I got to meet them. I went by a couple of days after the accident. I said, guys, I got a donation. They all know, come out and unload the truck, bring this stuff in. And I said, now, which one of you guys was here the other day when that car crash happened? 3 of them standing there, raise their hand, because it was kind of like that time of day. I'm like, gentlemen, I love you. God bless you. That's amazing. What a great
That's
thing.
incredible.
Yeah.
And I told my kids, every single kid that came through my classroom, I told them about that story. I said, the people we were just collecting donations for did this yesterday, 11 miles west of your home. That's what they did. That's what veterans do. And they're homeless. Up to 2 years wait list to get into that place, right? It's a really good program to help veterans get back on their feet. Just wanted to do that little connection because each of you guys said something. I told my kids about it. It's what veterans do.
Right.
And they make sure that their flag, back to the flag, they make sure that their flagpole is always upright and clean. Nice flag there. It's a beautiful place.
Shortly after I got out of the active duty military, I was a military policeman, and the intersection in Crystal Lake of 31 and 176 was still a 5-way intersection that another road went straight, and the stoplight was broke and it's flashing red, and there were cars backed up 300 yards any direction. Well, I know traffic control. I'm a military policeman. Pulled my car over. I got a Nebraska Huskers jersey on. I jumped out and started directing traffic. It took me about 5 minutes to have that intersection clear, and then I'm just having fun directing traffic. Well, pretty quick, there's a siren coming. So I stopped traffic. Let the sheriff come through. He gets up to me and he stops. He goes, "I've got it from here." And I'm like,
Nice.
you jerk. I just stopped everybody.
End of watch are good.
It was
Coffee break.
interesting. On Flag Day this year, I have a very interesting meeting with the state's attorney and with the county sheriff, where I'll be bringing the combat brain training program into the McHenry County Sheriff's Department. This is all about staying calm in conflict and being proactive before we get in the news for doing something stupid with a perpetrator. Let's give our sheriff's office the training that'll help. So I'm looking forward to just continuing to serve. And the problem with this too, and any one of you in this room, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we're service oriented, we sometimes forget to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. Self-care is very key.
Right? Which is why a lot of the veterans wind up homeless. They've given everything they have to someone else, and then they wind up not having themselves.
Right.
And sometimes the hardest thing for a veteran to do is to accept help. So the one thing, if you are going to try to provide for a veteran, do it respectfully, because if you do it respectfully, they can accept it. But if you're going, "Oh, here, you poor son of a gun,"
Right.
It's not going to be received.
Well, and more importantly is that from my previous life is that they're afraid to, well, not afraid. They're
He
not
was
afraid of
reincarnated, Rick.
anything, but they don't
Born
even ask for help. It's like, they don't have their squad anymore to help, attack the
Right.
hill. So they got this big problem. They don't even bring it up until they get in a situation where they're homeless or at the point of suicide or anything else like that.
Right.
And then you turn around and they're like, "I didn't know about this and I didn't know about that." Well, okay, because you didn't open your mouth and say, "I need help."
Yeah.
And that's more importantly, one thing accepting it, but it's kind of putting the flag up to find out, especially with other veterans. You talk to other vets, and everyone's got a C story they can tell. How many people that we heard that tells us about doing a VA claim? They don't know anything about VA claims, but they're going to tell you how to do a VA claim.
Yeah.
Oh,
But that's again trying to be a service, right?
That's right.
Well,
Send them to the experts.
the interesting things about the James A. Lovell Center in North Chicago is it's active duty and VA.
Mhm.
Well, I didn't realize that the emergency room was really VA. It's not DOD or retired individuals, but I was running a fever, and I'm like, oh, I got to go out there. So I go there, and he starts quizzing me and all the veteran stuff. I go, no, I'm DOD retired. I'm not, I don't need to qualify for the VA. Just give me some pills to do something, get this fever down. And it took them a while to figure out and to explain to me that, oh no, you have to go to a regular emergency room. TRICARE will take care of you there, but they wouldn't see me. I'm like, no, I'm here now. Bring the AOD in, bring somebody. We're going to get this taken care of now. I was sick. I was not happy.
And I ain't going nowhere else.
And finally, they walked me out to the pharmacy and gave me a prescription.
I use Level all the time. And the thing is, I was a little upset when I hit 65. Then I was like, okay, you got to go to Medicare. Well, Medicare I'm 70% disabled, so I get to go. I have to go across the building to the VA part. But if you're DOD, that emergency room is supposed to handle both because it's a joint facility.
Yeah, explain that to them.
But, yeah,
and maybe that was a few years ago. It was actually before I turned 65. It must have been the transition
time when they were confused.
It could have been, but it was an interesting discussion. I just want to get better. I don't care who does it.
I'm just thinking about the flag side of it again, and there was a really cool experience that I had when I was in Prague, Czechoslovakia, in 1978. And this is the 10th year anniversary of the 1968 Prague Spring, when the Russians invaded Czechoslovakia. So they anticipated that there was going to be some major issues, that people might rise again because it's the 10th year anniversary, that kind of thing. So they were just looking for any reason at all. The Russians were. All of a sudden, they just showed up. There's a bunch of Russians on every corner in Russian uniforms. There's on the train cars, there's armored personnel carriers and tanks and things like this. They didn't unload anything, but they were ready to.
Wow.
And they made their presence known. So what was really cool about it was that at that time we had at the American Embassy the second highest point in the city, which was the Glorietta. And I have pictures of it. I wish I gave that to you so we post it. But it's an old, ancient, built in 1375 structure that looks almost like the like Athena of the Apocalypse. Mm-hmm. Did I say Apocalypse?
Yes.
The one in Athens, Greece. So anyway, up at the back side of it is this American flag pole, and we ran that flagpole up 0800 dead on every morning. And right across the field from us is the Prague Castle, the home of the Czech communist government. There's Russians in there. I mean, the place is huge, massive. And they watched us raise that flag.
Yeah.
And I remember later on when I went there to get a license or ask them with a couple of cartons of cigarettes as a tip, I was wondering, we're going to have this event. Can you ask the police not to ticket our vehicles and so on? He goes, we could take care of that, no problem. And he goes, by the way, I want to let you know something, Sergeant. He said, I set my watch in the morning to you Marines raising that flag. And I went, from the communist government, there's a government official telling me that. And I went, man,
that's pretty cool.
That's cool. That's cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So pretty slick. That flag means a lot to a lot of people, even our enemies. Yeah. And so
hopefully more to them.
Yeah. I hope it reminds them as to who we are, and you know what? I thought about why things occurred in World War I. The Bella Woods incident and General Pershing's armies being successful once the Americans came on board. And if you take a look at it, if our wars that we fought, the Revolutionary War, we fought differently than they did, than our European counterparts. They would march in unison, big lines and so on. We copycatted that, but for the most part, outside of our marksmanship, where we ready, aimed, fired. They just ready, fired. They shoot over your head. Where we ready, aimed, fire. We hit people. And also the way that we fought our wars, it wasn't like the Napoleons and just go ahead and blow them up and attrition. We fought our wars to win. And if you think about it, during World War I, for example, that's a trench warfare, and they were all hunkered down, and they were staying there, and the Germans were really making a lot of headway, and 20 miles from Paris. And here we come. And we fought with tenaciousness. We fired, maneuvered, and we went after them. We took them out the same way that we did in every one of our wars. We had a different culture in war than even the Europeans, and that's what made it so successful. And we fought that way in Vietnam. We'd stick them out there in the middle of nowhere. And here, we talk about putting people in harm's way. We'd drop them in the middle of harm's way. Fight your way out. And here they were surrounded, one division by 6 divisions in the Korean War during the worst winter ever. And what do? We persevered. So, and that flag, really, you think about it, right in the middle of all of that was that American flag, and created by George Washington's wife way back when. And it's been
He knew what he was doing.
It's an amazing symbol, and it provides us with this unified motivation to be who we are and all of the ideals behind it. It's just a phenomenal thing.
Betsy Ross was rich. He knew what he was doing. He married in. I didn't say up. I said in. He married in.
Yes, he did.
Well, during that time when things weren't going quite well, a guy named Rogers, I forget his first name, Major Robert Rogers, put together some rules for us to fight by. And they're still in the Ranger Handbook to today. Number 1, don't forget nothing. Number 2, have your musket clean as a whistle, hatchet scoured, 60 rounds of powder and ball, be ready to march at a minute's warning. When you're out on the march, act the way you would if you was sneaking up on a deer. See the enemy first. To tell the truth about what you see and do, there's an army depending on us for correct information. You can lie all you please when you tell other folks, but when a ranger talks to a ranger, you don't lie to another ranger nor an officer. Don't never take a chance you don't have to. And it goes on and on there in the back of the
That's
Ranger
pretty
Handbook.
neat.
But they
Is that Rogers Raiders?
Rogers Rangers.
Rangers. Those are the first ones during the Revolutionary War and so on.
That's exactly right. When we camp, half the party stays awake while the other half sleeps. If we take prisoners, we keep them separate till we've had time to examine them, so they can't cook up a story between them. Don't ever
Separate the prisoners.
Don't ever march home the same way. Take a different route so you won't be ambushed.
Do that with our kids.
And
Separate
all of
the
these
kids.
rules still apply today with just updated language.
Right.
And it's the basis of how American fights the wars and why, what soccer is in America, club soccer. Club soccer is the British way of getting even with us for kicking them out of our country.
The one time I believe that the military really made a mistake was the Civil War. Because if you turn around and you look at all the engagements, what did they do? The same thing that they did in Europe. You have your mass going against the other mass. It's like, you guys forget something? But the innovative of the American soldier, to create the solutions to the problems at hand is really big. And having the Navy going around, and they do a lot of building with other countries as far as how to use naval ships and submarines and stuff like that.
Right.
And the Marines are there to work with the host country, but it's to show the flag. Because as long as we're out there, it's a stabilizing force throughout the world.
Yeah. We're in the last 5
amazing.
minutes, fellas. I believe this is an hour show. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yep.
it's about an hour. So what's in the last 5?
We're in the last 5. So why don't we go around and, what is something that you learned from your military service that you brought forward with you into this day and age?
Wow. For me, very little that hasn't had an impact on me. My military service, the leadership that I got from certain officers like Warrant Officer Johnny Withrow, shout out to him. He taught me how to manage a platoon of 100 Marines and how to do it well, be the best, be the sharpest, and always be the motivator and the most enthusiastic. And it was all about, those type of things. And I carried those things with me everywhere I went. When I became a police officer, when I worked in the trucking industry, I always worked in middle management, and I always carried those type of things. So that my veteran experience really took me a long way, right up until retirement.
I always carried a clipboard because I learned as a second lieutenant, if you have a clipboard, everybody thinks you already got a mission and they leave you alone.
Joe?
I think something simple would be to just steal this phrase, take a mission, execute the mission. I was pretty much a lost, wayward soul at college, dropped out, got in the Marine Corps, and immediately engaged everything that I wanted to do and maturing. And it helped me. I got a master's degree, and a good career. So I think I've used for example, the Marine Corps classroom. Today, your objective is you're going to learn how to break down the M2 and reassemble it after a safety check, do a safety check. And when I teach my class to my kids today, I start with today, you can do this. This is your objective. When you walk out, you will be able to do this.
Wow, that's awesome.
Headspace and Tommy.
Yeah.
Well, I can't show them that, but there are some Marine Corps and machine gun jokes about me at that school. We could ask the guys for a shorter version of it.
Sure.
They're like, hey, Joe Mack, what are you thinking about? I'm really bored at some teacher meeting. Machine guns. It was just a teacher meeting, but I was pretty bored, and I'm like, I was thinking about machine
You're going to
guns.
send them out.
U.S.
Postal.
machine gun crew served automatic weapon. Weapon utilizes a bandolier. 100 rounds can be fired from the assault bipod or vehicle mounted position.
Here we go.
Sounds good.
Hoorah.
Yeah, for me, the biggest thing the Marine Corps taught me was perseverance in hard times. But even persevering through hard times, you have to have some form of faith. So when we got to boot camp, they were talking about God, core, and country and all that stuff. And, at that time, I'm like, stuff's going in one ear, out the other. I just want to get boot camp done with. But, now as I further progress in my somewhat half maturity mind, it works every time, even though, we see an objective or you're going into the unknown, it's going to be uncomfortable, or you get veterans that, they're trying to get their benefits or they're mentally, losing it and all that stuff. Just keep persevering forward and go to the right resources to help you along with that.
Right.
Don't be thinking that you can try to fix a problem with that same level of mind that created it, because that's why you're there. So that's why you got to get the help, but just keep persevering forward in the right direction. Just keep praying to the big guy upstairs and all that. And it hasn't steered me wrong yet, although it's led me on a wild ride where I'm like, you know what? Can you make that a little bit less freaky? Like, good Lord, no pun intended. But that's
Could we have the paved road next time?
Yeah, right. I think I'm done learning lessons for right now.
The biggest thing, and I got had the opportunity to do for 20 years, is that using all the skills that I had to do for 20 years and then transition to help others. When shit goes bad, I don't worry about it, because all I do is, what's the situation? And, if you know the situation, now you can create the mission and how you're going to execute it and fix it. So when everybody else is spazzing around you about stuff, when, I had CEOs that would spaz at a company I was a manager at, and it's like, time out, what's your problem? Okay, now I know what your problem is. I know what you want. Get out of the way, I'll get it fixed. Piece of cake. Way I was when I first went in and the way I am after when I retired is different, because when I was sergeant, corporal, it was kicking ass, taking names. Yeah, you dropped the F-bomb every other word.
Yep.
But being in the garage, because it's a hostile environment, you operate
Right.
differently. But when you turn around and get older, you don't have to use the F-bomb as much. Matter of fact, I tease my wife.
I didn't say nothing.
We don't.
I didn't say nothing.
But I tease my wife now that I says, what's with the potty mouth? It's like when I retired, the profanity kind of disappeared.
Well, she did drop a few F-bombs when she was on the phone or whatever. with you
Oh,
earlier.
yeah.
Right. And I'm sure she's listening right
Wow.
now. And she's like, thank you very
Sorry,
much.
I didn't mean to
Mike."
drop
The
any
last
dimes.
5
Sheila.
minutes, nobody listens.
No, she's actually at work.
My wife never ever swore until after she married me.
Yeah, Mr. Googly Eye extraordinaire over there.
I was officiating a wedding one time, and the groomsmen and the groom were all at the bar, and I walked over, and they all of a sudden they said, "Shh, the pastor's here." I'm like, "Look, son, I spent 21 years in the infantry and over 40 years in locker rooms around the country." I said, "We can probably go toe to toe, and if you don't pour me a shot of tequila to have with you, we're not having this wedding."
Okay, so now that we're going to wrap it up.
Patron for everyone.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
So if you like what you hear, please don't forget to hit the like button, share and subscribe to this podcast, pass the word, and watch it on YouTube, Spotify, and that is 216 The Net, Apple, and Twitch. And for YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification for future videos, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.
And if I might add, God bless America, first
God
off.
bless America.
And our next show is going to be on Thursday, June the 15th, where we have a special guest by the name of Captain, who's a former or a retired captain in the United States Navy, who captained, was in charge of a ship. And he's going to tell us his incredible stories about being a leader on board of a naval vessel during some pretty tumultuous times in the U.S. Navy. So that's going to be on June the 15th at Roger That Chronicles. We look forward to that.
We want to thank Tim and Joe for being here today to give their insight on the flag. We want to thank the viewers and listeners as well for listening to us.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
So our mission is to provide the service of fellow veterans in discussing issues that we can relate to and of our interest. If you have any interest, go ahead and send us a message and we'll get that. Let's go to McHenryCountyMCL.com website, post what you want to hear for a future topic. We also want to encourage veterans to get off your ass.
You can say it. We're not.
All right.
Ass.
And depending on what branch you're in, you go and find a local VFW, the American Legion, AMVETS, Marine Corps League, Navy League, Fleet Reserve Association, and whatever other organization. But get involved with other veterans organizations. One, you have some input that will help them. At the same time, they might be able to help you in moving forward in your life. So get that camaraderie going there, guys.
Don't forget that non-veterans can be in the auxiliary group or an associate member of certain groups too. You don't
And
have to be a veteran to join.
work on a claim as well too for your VA
Everyone.
benefits.
Absolutely.
Everybody.
Oh, your claim.
So a little boy comes home and says, "Mom, Dad, I got a part in the play." And they said, "What part?" She said, "The teacher have the most important part. I get to sit in the audience." That's why you're the most important part in this show, because without you, we don't have a reason. So keep tuning in, keep sharing, and keep more veterans coming into Roger That Chronicles.
Hoorah.
Love the music.
Who, us?
Cue it.
Cue the music.